Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Becoming a Mommy, third episode on the row. How are you feeling, Sue?
I am good. How you doing, Louisa?
I'm so good. I'm so good. Well, it's great to be back. We're in October, it's summer, and the weather is nice. Hopefully, everyone's enjoying the time. Thank you so much for joining us on this lovely Saturday. We're so glad that you've chosen to watch our channel. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now and watch our other two episodes on the channel. We will so much will be very grateful if you do that. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Louisa and I'm joined by with Sue. She's my co-host. Anyway, so Sue, from the last episode, we
Hi.
were talking about our pregnancy journeys and everything that we went through with our pregnancies. Now, on this episode, I just wanted us to concentrate and talk more and dive into our birth stories. Like what went down when we're giving birth. How is it like meeting our babies for the first time and seeing how they look? So, I just wanted you to start sharing how your birth story was like, what went down, and everything else that you can tell.
Okay. So if you remember from the last episode, um, when I start my story, I had been admitted into hospital at 41 weeks. That's when I was overdue, and they were like, "You're not going home. Like this baby needs to come out now." And me being so naive, I think, let me put it that way. I thought like they're admitting me today, they're gonna, do whatever they need to do, and tomorrow I'm leaving this place with my baby. And I think it just made it worse because I was at a government hospital. So everything moved at a snail's pace. So here I am. When I
Yeah.
came, I had no expectation of being admitted. So it was just me and a small handbag and all of that. And they were like, "You're not going anywhere." So luckily, I had gone with my mother-in-law. She had accompanied me to the hospital. So I told her that, like I need stuff. I'm not coming back home. So I spent the whole day in the hospital's clinic, the antenatal clinic, doing the
Yeah.
check-in, sitting, waiting for people to, like to come and tell you where to go, what to do, change. We had to change our clothes, and clothes needed to go home. And I got there, I think at like 5 in the morning. It was only at 3 that we got to go to the maternity ward. And this ward was not the labor ward,
Yeah.
it was a maternity ward where you go when you're in labor, but you're not dilated enough, you're not ready to give birth. So this was like a waiting room, this place that
Yeah.
they're taking me to. So I'm there on the Monday. Luckily, I got there on the Monday, and a lot of people get discharged on a Monday or on a Sunday or Monday. You get discharged. So I was lucky to get a bed early. I managed to get a bed, and so I spent the night, and I was like, okay, cool. Tomorrow, doctor's gonna come see me because today, obviously, I checked in late, so the doctors are gonna come in the morning, do their rounds. They're gonna get this baby out of me, and you know, Tuesday the doctors came and they were like, "We're gonna wait for you to go into labor, so chill, you're okay." And I think also there's no TV, there's nothing to entertain you, just your phone if you have data, like that's all there was. And I remember I didn't have like a proper smartphone. I had like those entry level small tiny smartphones, just WhatsApp kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
situation. And I was bored, like I was bored. And you would see people coming and going, people would come, start labor, and go. And during the night, people would go to the labor ward and you never see them. So this was the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, I think it was on the Wednesday, they were like, okay, we're gonna try and induce you. But then they had a pill. I can't remember what this pill was called that they had to put, down there to force labor on me. And I was like happy to be doing it, like I was tired of this pain, like when it's time, like literally it was irritating me. I needed it to go. I was tired of it.
It irritates, it annoys, it does everything.
Like it's ridiculous. So I was when they say that I was like, okay, cool, let's do this. And then so they gave me a pill in the morning, and I think I was supposed to get one every 6 hours or 8 hours or something like that. And they gave me one in the morning. And then this doctor was like, I'm going to come check on you. I think it was every 6 hours because she said she was going to come around lunch. And she never came. So, and this pill was supposed to do something to me, and it didn't do anything. um, a person is supposed to get three of these pills, so every 6 hours, three times, and then by the time you get the third, you they actually told me that usually they don't get to the third one because you're like so into labor,
Yeah,
you just have to. But then they gave me this first one, and she didn't come back. This doctor didn't come back. And then later in the day, a student doctor was doing his rounds, and I think it was around 6 p.m. on the Wednesday, and he was like, "Oh, they gave you a pill. They were supposed to come and give you another one. So I'm gonna give you one, and then I'm gonna start the cycle." So he gave me the first one,
yeah,
think it was around 4ish or 6. It was late afternoon. And then he gave me one and he went. And then he came and he gave me the second one. The first one didn't do nothing for me. Like I didn't feel, I was normal. It was like they didn't even do a thing. It didn't, nothing. And then they gave me the second one. And when he gave me the
yeah,
second one, I think after about an hour or so, I got this burning pain in my back. It it was ridiculous. I was like, if this is labor, yo, and it was all I could do was get from I was walking around. I used to walk around a lot because I was bored, and it started to get hot. It was like I've never felt anything like that. I don't even know how to describe, but it was a burning pain, and I it started, and now I had a friend. Now we were friends with the lady next to my bed, and I told her that, like we were talking and we were walking around, and then I just came back and I was quiet. I talk a lot, so she knew something was up. And then
yeah,
I went on my bed. I i lied down, and I couldn't move. This thing was, it was burning me so bad I couldn't move. Like just to move my leg an inch, it felt so bad. But the only thing was, it was only there. It was only in this one strip area, like just my waistline, just there, like literally like this on my
yeah.
waistline,
So
on my
it
back.
kind of like how like a bad cramp, like when you're
Yes,
menstruating, like
but it was
is it like
it
the
was
bad cramp you get right on close to the butt, but it's not really on your butt.
yes, but it was a burning feeling. It wasn't even like a crampish thing. It was burning. I don't know how to describe this burning thing. So I'm lying there, and nothing is going on. Like I felt pain, and it's not even like proper pain. Like when you hurt or something. It's not that kind of pain. It's, I don't know. And I was lying in bed, and this lady was laughing at me because she was like, "Those pills are working. I can see them." and and she was laughing, and she was like, "You're gonna go into labor soon." But then same thing, nothing happened. Like the pain was just there. No, like nothing going on with me cramping or feeling like, if I don't even know if that's what people who go into labor experience, because I didn't experience it. There was nothing going on to indicate that this
Hmm.
baby was trying to push or trying to come out, nothing. uh, n- just this pain. So he came back to give me a second pill because remember we were starting the cycle again. And then he did an ECG.
Yeah.
So he was looking for my child's heartbeat, and this heartbeat was ridiculous. It was it had an irregular beat. So he was like, no, something is wrong.
Yeah.
You need to go into another room. There was this room that they used to take ladies who were starting to dilate so they can monitor them. And he was like, go into that room. We're going to put an ECG on you while you're lying down. And the bed there, like, could shift and things like that. So I went into that room. I'm in this room now. The one nurse came. They put an ECG on me and left. But then my child was having
Yeah.
an irregular heartbeat. So when they came back, they were like, you were moving, you are busy moving up and down. This machine is not taking a correct reading of your child's ECG because you are fidgeting. And I was like, no, I haven't been fidgeting because this pain, I can't even move. And they were like, no, you've been fidgeting and all of that. So she was like, we're going to do it a second time. Don't move. And then she put this thing on me again and she left. When she left, she came back with two other nurses because they were doing a shift change. And she came and she told these two nurses that this lady is doing an ECG, but she's been moving around so much, and this ECG is not coming out right. So now she's your problem. I'm going home. And I said, I'm not moving. And then she was like, no,
Oh
you
wow.
are moving because now when they came back, it was irregular again. So that first nurse went, and then these two were like, "Don't move. We told you not to move. We hate it when patients do this and all of yada yada yada." And I was not in the mood for talking, so I just kept quiet when these two started talking. And then they put this ECG thing on me again, and they left. And then they came back, and this thing was still irregular. And then they were like, "You know what? I am going to stay here with you because you are fidgeting." And I was like, okay. And then she stayed with me and she could hear the heartbeat. It was still irregular. And then they were like, no, there's something wrong with this machine. You know, these stupid machines that break down all the time. We're going to put you on a different ECG machine. And then they put me on the different ECG machine. And guess what the second ECG machine did? They could hear two heartbeats. And they were like, are you having twins? And I was like, no. And they were like, we are not supposed to hear two heartbeats when it's just one baby. Are we hearing your heartbeat? Or maybe you've got twins. And I was like, no, I'm sure it's one baby because we did a scan and all of that multiple times. It's one baby. That's when they were like, no, we have to go and call this doctor. And then they went and they looked for the doctor, and then they showed him this ECG thing, and the doctor scheduled me for. He was like, we need to stop because whatever this pill is doing, it's stressing your baby. So we need to schedule you for C-section. And this, remember, this is Wednesday night. Well, now it's like early hours, and they were like, before dawn, you should go for a C-section. Thursday morning, nothing happened. Nobody came to get me for the C-section. Thursday morning, doctors came. They did their rounds, and then they saw this irregular thing, and they were like, no, do another ECG.
Yeah.
So I went and I did another ECG, and it was normal. They were like, this is so crazy, there was something wrong with the machine, this doctor is crazy. How can he say a perfectly normal mother and baby should go and get a C-section? So they were like, they were even contemplating, and they called the other doctors to ask, like, should we go along with the C-section story since the ECG is now normal, or like should we take her off C-section because there was a backlog in the C-section department. There were still other women coming after me for C-sections, and we were still waiting together for C-sections. And then they were like,
Yeah.
no, if the doctor saw something, just leave it. So leave her on the list, and then, but she's not an emergency. So if someone is already in labor and the child is in distress, they were going to go before me. And then, so I'm on this list on Thursday. I spent the day. On Friday, I spent the day. And then Friday night, they were like, prepare yourself. You're gonna go for a C-section. Don't eat. I think they told me in the afternoon, and they were like, "Don't eat because you're gonna go tonight." And I didn't eat the whole day. I didn't eat the whole, I slept through the night without eating. Saturday morning, I was like, "These people are crazy. I'm hungry." So I ate. But then Saturday morning, my husband was like, "Keep nagging them. Start asking them, like, when should I eat? When should I eat?" Because um, he actually said, "Go and ask them when you're going for the C-section." But then I was so scared because of the previous incident with the nurses. So I kept going to say, "When should I eat? I am hungry. And you guys told me I'm going for a C-section. I'm so hungry. When should I eat? When should I eat?" So the whole night, Friday, late afternoon and the night, I was asking them, "When should I eat?" And then they kept saying, "Don't eat anything. Don't eat anything." We went through the night. Saturday morning, I said, "These people are crazy. Like, I'm going to die of hunger." Yeah. And I'm pregnant. So I started eating, but I never told them that I'm eating. I kept going back to say, "When should I start eating? I'm hungry." I've been not eating for over 24 hours, I said at one time. And then the lady was like, I think it was Saturday afternoon, and she was like, "You know what? Just eat. Because these people, they're not coming. Just eat." And then I ate in the afternoon, then I ate at night, and then we were going to bed, I think around 10 o'clock ish Saturday night, and they come and call me and they're like, "You're going." So they came and they got me and they put me on a bed, no shoes, no clothes, no phone, nothing. Everything of mine was left. And I had to ask this friend of mine that I'd made to send messages to my family and tell them that, they're taking me for the C-section. And then they took me around 10 o'clock. I was there. I don't know for how long because I was just staring in this blank space, and they had a blanket over me. And at some point, I think they asked me to take off the gown, and I was lying on that bed waiting for. I only realized for how long after I already had the child that I was waiting in there for like more than 2 hours to go into theater. So they kept bringing people, taking people out, bringing people, and eventually it was my turn, and they took me into this theater room, and these doctors. It was after midnight. I remember it was a little bit after midnight, and there was the what what do you call the chief doctor? I don't know what you call the doctor in charge. He was there, and then he had, I think, two or three other doctors, but they were junior doctors. And these junior doctors were complaining, and they were saying, I
Yeah.
specifically remember it was after midnight because one of them was like, "It's after midnight. I am tired. We've been operating the whole day, and I want to go home now." And then he asked me, and he was like, "Are you in distress?" I said no. And then they said, "Are you in labor?" I said no. And then they were like, "Is there something wrong with your baby?" And I said, "Not that I know of." And then these junior doctors were like to the senior doctor, "We're tired. Why doesn't like this lady just go back, and we'll see if we can fit her in tomorrow because she's not in distress. Why are you forcing us to operate on it?" And then he was like, "No, she's the last one. Just bear with me, like she's the last one for the day, and then we're done, and then we can come back tomorrow." So eventually he convinced these other doctors to operate on me, but I was scared now because I was like, if these people are tired and then they actually do not want to do this. Anyway, I was scared now because these people were like tired and all of that, and I was really scared. But anyway, everything went well. They put the injection in my spine and covered my stomach so I don't see what's going on, but I could hear them. I could feel them. I
Yeah.
remember specifically the feeling when they took the baby out, and it just felt like a vacuum. I think that's what if somebody were to put a vacuum cleaner somewhere and pull, that's what it feels like. It just went, you know. And yeah, and they
Yeah.
got the baby out. The baby didn't cry immediately. She didn't cry immediately. They like had to take things off her nose, I think. And then she cried, and then they brought her, and they were like, can you?" They asked me. I think they wanted to see if I'm lucid, and they were like, "Can you see what gender the baby is?" And I was like, "It's a girl," and they were like, "Yes, it's a girl." And she looked just like her father, like I remember at one point my uncle made a joke and they were like, "What if they gave you the wrong baby?" And I was like, "I know my
They
baby.
always
She looks
do.
exactly like a father." So yeah,
They
so they
always
took
do.
me
It's
out, and
annoying.
later when we were done, they saw me up, they took me out, and they put me in this room where they monitor you after the C-section. That's when, remember that cold I spoke about in the other episode? That's when I felt it. I was
Yeah,
shaking like I'm in a freezer room. I was shaking and it was ridiculous. I was so cold. It hurts like in my bones. And I asked for a blanket and they put this pipe thing that had hot air coming out of it. And then after a couple of hours, I think it was around 5ish in the morning, they took me back to the um what to the mother ward, and then they took me back there. They never gave me my baby to do that skin to skin thing or anything like that. They took her and they put her in an incubator, and then they took the baby away. And a couple of hours after I arrived, I had like period pain, like I was bleeding and I could feel that I was bleeding. It was so sore. And then I think it was around 8ish in the morning, they brought the baby, and then they put the baby on. It wasn't, like how in the movies they make it seem like you just see your baby and you're like, oh, it wasn't like that for me. I
yeah,
think I was in so much pain. I think I also didn't really comprehend what had just happened. So I was kind of detached. But then when she started to breastfeed, that's when it was so easy, but it was so sore when she started breastfeeding and she was hungry because the child could breastfeed. And yeah, so that's when like it started sinking in and I started seeing my baby and I was like, this is really mine. And that connection started building, but it wasn't like an instant thing. Like it was after the thinking, after the realization, after the sinking in, I was like, I made a baby, and she's here. And funny thing, I was in that
yeah,
ward from 5 until 8. At 8 o'clock, they made us get up. They made us take away that we had this big pad thing so that if the blood leaked, it will go into that thing. And they made us clean our beds. They put our babies in this stroller bed like thing, and they were like, push your babies, learn to walk. Nobody's gonna walk for you here. Push your babies and move to the other side. And I was like, I'm not even, it was so sore. I remember I was walking like an old woman. I was bent over and all of that. Then later they were like, me and this other lady were not supposed to do that because we had literally just come out of surgery. But they put us together with the ladies who had come on the Saturday, because now it was Sunday. But anyway, that happened. And then we moved over. Breastfeeding was fine. My baby never struggled to breastfeed. I never struggled with milk because before I even gave birth to her, like I used to get wet with milk. So I never struggled with that. And then, so this was the Sunday. On the Monday, um, I was supposed to go out, not on the Monday. On the Monday, they moved us to the other side of the ward, and then we were sitting there. When we were sitting there, I started having pains on my incision, and then one of the ladies who was like not a first time mother was like, you know what, you need to be cleaning this thing yourself, because they were not coming to put spirit on it for me or anything like that. And she was like, go and steal the spirit that they use to disinfect, put that on cotton, go to the bathroom and rub yourself hard. If you don't do that, this thing is going to rot. And it had already started, like getting mucusy and things like that, which is why I was getting this pain. So every couple of hours, I started doing that. This was on the Monday. I started doing that, and it started getting better. On the Tuesday, I was supposed to go home on the Tuesday, and then the doctor came and he asked me if I had pooed. I had peed, but I hadn't pooed since birth. And he was like, if you haven't, then I can't send you because you need to push something out so we can make sure that these stitches are intact, like they're proper. They're not going to break or anything. So he gave me a pill. So I had to stay another day. and then the spill worked, and I pulled. And
Yeah.
yeah, when he came the next, he was like, if you pull, then it's fine. You have to go now. So they came on the Tuesday. They had already given my daughter the injection, the BCG injection, because I was supposed to go, but then they didn't. I didn't go. So on the Wednesday, the nurse wanted to give her another one, and I was like, no, she got one yesterday, and she was like, it's not written in your card, and I explained, and then she was like, you're gonna make your baby sick because you're not getting this injection and you're lying to me, and I was like, no, I'm not lying, and then she was just being funny about it, and I also wanted to get um my a family planning pill or injection or something like that, because they only give that to you on the day you leave. But there was no nurse to give me that, which I was so disappointed about. There was nobody who could help me, because apparently this nurse only comes 2 times a week. So if you miss her, you miss her, kind of thing. And yeah, we were there, and then I left on the Wednesday. I went home. I
That's a
went back
wild
to
story.
I went back to my aunt's place. My husband came, he got me. Another thing that I forgot to say was, because my phone was left with this other lady in the other section where I was, I couldn't tell people that I had given birth. So my sister had to call the like official hospital number, be changed from landline to landline until she got the correct one. And then they called out my name. I think it was on the Sunday. And they're like, come to the phone. And then I went to the phone. And then she was like, oh, she's finally given birth. I told her that I gave birth and what had happened. And then she was like, okay, let me call your husband, because my husband was by the gate, busy fighting with people, trying to come inside so he can see what's going on. And they were like, no, we only had one visiting hour, which was from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. They're like, no, you have to wait for 3 to 4. You can't go and see your wife. You can't check. You can't do nothing. So my sister had to call my husband and tell her that, you have a baby now. That's how he got the news. I never got to tell him myself, that the baby is here. And then, so that was that. After I gave birth, I went home to my aunt, and my mother was there. My mother was there with me. She traveled from Zim to come and the nice thing about it, she on the day that I got my baby is the day that she arrived and she could see my child, which I was very happy about. And yeah, so we home now, and I was scared. I won't lie to you. I was scared that like I told you, I'm a heavy sleeper, and I always had this fear that I was gonna roll over and sleep over my child and kill my baby. But it never happened for some reason. I don't know. Like, I think that is God, like literally, because not once did I ever, even if she cries like the tiniest whimper, I wake up. No matter how deep in sleep I am, like I wake up. So for me, that's like a big mommy win. Like, I always wake up for my child, and I never slept on top of her. So yeah, that is my wild, wild hospital story. When I told you this pregnancy was like, it was. I've never been a water one. It's like a good birth story. It's an adventureful one.
I feel like it's very the parts where I find similar to mine, but it's wild to me because there's a lot of negligence that I see in your story, which also I there are some in mine, but like there's a lot of negligence because for me, um, coming from like where I left off the last episode was just like they had asked me to get a C-section done, and I voluntarily said, yeah, I will get this done. When we came back to the hospital, like I said, it took a bit of time for them to check me in. So I had to spend 1 hour outside because of COVID, everything that has happened after COVID. So the checkup after COVID and whatnot, it took us an hour just to get inside the hospital. Now, my C section was scheduled for 8 a.m. But I knew I had to be there 2 hours before so that they can prep me for everything else. Unfortunately, when I got there, there were two women that had to have emergency C sections. So I had to wait for them because mine wasn't an emergency. But they had already prepped me. So they had already put the catheter and whatnot. The one thing that I remember from that time was the first nurse that I met, um, who had put the catheter, put it in a way where it was so painful for me to pee. So I was having this very bad pain. And I remember when my aunt, who was a nurse at the
I
hospital, when
actually
she
have
came to
that
check on me, I
feeling
was just
that
like,
they
this,
put that in me.
pardon,
Oh, I was saying I forgot
pardon?
that they put that in me.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
So I told my,
Oh,
yeah, I remember telling my aunt, just like, this thing is painful. I don't think like, I can't survive this. And she was like, at first, she was just like, oh, it happens. And then I remember she saw how my face was scrunched up every time pee would like come out. And she was just like, well, this is not normal. I'll get you a new one. So she took a new one, brought it over, and she had to insert it herself. And that was a time when I felt like sometimes when you have family who are in healthcare, they take better care of you than people that are just strangers. Because with other nurses, it's just let's get this job done, and the faster we move on, like yeah, the better. But when you have people that they kind of have that maternal instinct to be like, wait, I need her to be fine. So that was like one moment where I was like, okay, yeah, like she's taking care of me. So they had the catheter done, and then when it was time for me to go to the theater, that was around 9, like half 9, somewhere there. And just like you, I'm there sitting outside. So I was on the bed. They had rolled me in, but I was still not in. So right by the door, I remember just being on the bed waiting to be rolled in, and there I was, not really wearing anything. I was in a gown, but like there was nothing beneath that.
it's
And
open. Yeah.
there was another lady, because the theater room has like four other rooms, so they can have like four surgeries happening at once. So there was another lady who had just come out, and then right as they were about to roll me into the room that they would have the C-section done, they had rolled out a lady who had passed while giving birth. And I feel like that was the most scary part because I already knew how dangerous a C-section was, but actually seeing someone who was dead right in front of my eyes pass me, it kind of gave
Right.
me that weird feeling where I was like, will I come out alive or will I come out just like that? And it's a very bad feeling because you end up thinking about a lot because you're thinking, if I don't come out alive, what will happen to my child? Like what will be the future of my baby? And if you do come out alive, all you do is thank God. And I remember when I had left, my mom just saying, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not eating, I'm not doing anything, all I'm going to do is pray. And so at that moment, I closed my eyes and I prayed. I have never prayed like I did that day where I was just like, I'm going into this room, but I need you, as in Jesus, I need you to be there with me. And I need to come out alive because I can't, for the life of me, you know. I felt like even in the afterlife, I would feel guilty leaving my child alone without me being around. So I was rolled in, um, and the doctors kind of knew that I had seen that the other lady had passed. So they were trying to create an environment where I wasn't thinking of it too much. And they were making jokes and whatnot, and I was laughing at them. A lot of them were very young. So I was laughing at the jokes. I was like, but I knew what they were trying to do. I knew they were trying to take things off my mind. But you still have that at the back of your head where you're like, someone just passed me and she's dead. Like, regardless of, no matter what story you say, that's not going to get out of my brain. So I remember when they were like, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, sure, sure, sure. They're like, we need you not to think about anything, we just want you to be in the present. And I was like, I kind of am. So they start injecting me, doing all sorts of stuff, and I really didn't care. On a normal day, I hate being injected. I hate injections for the, as in, no, I'm just not that person. I hate needles. I don't like them. But on that specific day, they're like, oh, we have to inject you, right close to your spine. And I was like, please do whatever you want to do. I want this baby out. Like, I just need him out. So they did the injections, laid me on the bed, covered my face so I don't see whatever is happening. And then I could actually feel the numbing of my body just go numb. And I was like, cool. So it's
Yeah.
about to go down. So I remember just feeling the incision when they were like cutting me up, and I was like, okay, so the cut has been done. Cool, cool, cool. You know? And then
And it
you
feels
could
like
feel like
rubber.
how they kind of,
Cutting on
yeah,
rubber.
but like you actually feel when they part the
When they're
body,
putting
like
the
when they're parting the stomach, and then you feel the baby come out, and they're like, oh, baby is out. And just like yours, mine didn't cry right away. So they took the baby out. As they were prepping him, I remember the other guy just having a look of concern, and I was like, what's wrong? And they never told me. They're like, oh, he's fine. He did whatever he had to do. Baby starts crying. They bring him over, and I was like, wow, you don't look like me. I was like, okay, cool. You've decided not to look like me, and that's all right. You can look like your father all you want, but it's not fair. Because if I have you in my body for 9 months,
No,
the least thing you can do is actually take a bit of me. Not
imagine.
that child, though.
Empathy.
Not that child. Anyway, so they took him out. They brought him over. I looked at him. I saw him. They took him out, and one of the doctors was like, "Trust me. Within 5 minutes, you won't remember that child. You won't remember his face. The only thing you think about is the fact that he looks like, like the father, but you won't remember his face." And truth be told, 5 minutes later, I had no idea what my child looked like.
I I also
But
had that
then
same
at that
feeling.
time, I remember.
They bring me another child.
Yeah, but like it's a thing here where you have to like see the baby. You have to be sure that's your child. And so, but I wasn't scared. I was like, my mom is going to look at him. Like, that's fine. I don't mind. So I remember as they were trying to, though, when they were trying to, like, when they were cleaning my tummy, like the insides, I started feeling this weird thing right on my chest, and I made it known to the doctors. I was like, is it normal that I feel this burning sensation on my chest and it's rushing to my heart? And they were like, oh, it's cool. But at the same time, you see the look in, they were looking at each other, the two surgeons that were working on me, they looked at each other, and it was that thing of fear. And then I remember just one of them going, we need to hurry it up. We need to hurry it up. And I was like, what's going on? Like, why are we hurrying with anything? Like, you just said I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? So they hurried me up, stitched me up, burnt the top of my body, could not feel a thing. And then they're like, oh, we're done. uh, they made this joke where they're like, you're a happy customer and whatnot. And I was laughing. Like, when they were rolling me out, I was laughing. And then they took me to my room, put me down, and I could feel the bleeding. But at that moment, I was so overtaken by sleep, I just slept off. Let me just say, I've never felt so useless in my life. Like, at that moment, I felt so useless because my child was in nursery. I was on my bed. I could not stand up. I could not do anything. Um, I could not change myself. Here I am bleeding heavily, but I can't change myself. I can't do anything. I'm relying on my mom to like clean me up. I was relying on my mom to go look at my baby, see how he's doing. I needed her to clean stuff and whatnot. It's one of the most annoying feelings in the world when you feel like you are at the mercy of someone, even someone as close as your parent, but you feel very useless in that moment. So I remember after about 6 hours, I think that's when they brought the baby, and he was perfect. And I had that moment where I was just like they here. Oh my god! I was like, like, oh, there's a child. As it, I guess I did that for like 9 months. It's finally here. Um, and he was fine. So breastfeeding was easy. Milk couldn't come out, but I was still told to like keep putting my boob in his mouth so he can, kind of suck it. That way, putting the hormones could like it kind of like sense that, oh, there's demand, so we have to supply. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Now this is when now things started getting tricky. The second day, they the nurses came by and they're like, oh, we need to take the baby for vaccination, so BCG. My mom took him there. He got vaccinated. He was fine during the day, but then as we were approaching evening, suddenly his fever spiked, and my mom was like, this is not normal. We need to take him to the nursery so they can have a look at him. So took him to the nursery, and they were like, he needs to stay here. We need to have a close check on him. And then at that time, they were like, this is this is our schedule. As a mom, you have to come here every 2 hours to breastfeed. So I had to see him every 2 hour interval. Now, you're looking at someone who's just had a C-section done. I could barely walk normally, but and the distance between my room and the nursery was very long, but I still had to do that walk every day, every 2 hours, regardless of whatever time. So started doing that. The first day, nothing changed. The baby's fever was still spiking. They were not giving him any medication. And as a new mom, the one thing you don't want is your baby not being fine, because already there's like so much going on in your brain. You just want to go home. You just want to sit down. You just want to rest. Now your baby is not fine, and you go from being at the mercy of someone taking care of you now at the mercy of nurses having to look at your child. You know, and so the first day, they were not giving him medication. His fever was getting bad, and I was getting emotional. The second day, still the same thing. And I remember just crying one day because I was seated outside in the afternoon, waiting for the 2 hours to be done so I can go back in for the breastfeeding session. And I could just hear the babies in the nursery cry, and they were crying. They had been crying for like 30 minutes. I went and knocked just to like see mine, because I was like, I don't think it matters that I have to wait for 2 hours. If the baby is crying, can I at least see him? You know, because it's really breaking me. And the nurse there was like, no, we can't allow you to see him. The rules are the rules. 2 hours. And I was like, but this is my child. Like, if he's crying and I feel like I'm the person who can stop him crying, I would rather come in and stop him from crying.
Mhm.
And I remember she just did not have it. And I was like, if that's the case, then give me my baby, because you guys are not giving him any medication. His fever is still up. There is no change. He is as weak as he can be. And at the end of the day, you're refusing me from seeing my child. That does not make sense to me. It baffles me. So give me my baby. At least I know if I have him close by, he can breastfeed. He doesn't have to cry as much as he's crying in there. They're like, no, babies need to cry, they need to find their voice. And that's the one thing that annoyed me, because it was like, a baby can't find his voice by crying for an hour or two. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
all you're doing is like, what are we doing? I was literally like, what are we doing? What exactly is going on? And I remember my mom, because I
Same.
had been crying so much, my mom just started shouting. She was like, I will fight anyone. Give me my grandson. If you're not going to give this child any medication, I would rather you bring me my child. And that was a time when it raised an alarm. So a doctor came in, checked the baby. He was like, "Oh my God, the fever is too high. He has an infection. We need to start giving him medication." And I was like, "You guys waited until we sounded alarm for you guys to think this child needs medication?" It was crazy to me because I was like, and what if he died? What then were you going to do? Oh, we hadn't seen that it was a need for him to be on medication. It didn't make sense. So they did that. They started giving medication. So they had to put a cannula on his hand. And imagine, this is a newborn. There you are putting a cannula on a newborn's hand just for you to be like putting medication in his body. And they were injecting him with cristopen and gentamicin. These are like the hardest meds you can find. Even as older humans, when we're injected with them, it's difficult. But there was a baby being given this medication and he couldn't cry. Each and every time they would administer medication to him, he never cried, not one bit. And that's the part where I was like, this child is really sick, like he's not doing fine. Because on a normal day, a baby should cry if he's being given something that's very heavy, but he never did. So he was given medication for about 3 or 4 days, and then that's when his fever started getting down. During the time, I couldn't dress him in, like couldn't put any clothes on him. Every 2 hours that I would go see him, I would take a cloth, um, like get it wet with cold water and just press it around his body so that maybe, like the fever could kind of get down a bit. And it used to help. Like it would get normal for a bit before rising again. So every 2 hours, that was like my routine. Take a cloth, get it wet, and, gently press it. But it was difficult, especially because I still was healing from my wound. So I wasn't fully healed, but I was expected to do things like a normal person, like a woman who had gone through a vaginal birth. And so it was a very awkward moment for me. Um, so we went in on the first. So Evan was born on the 1st of December, um, and we got out, I think, about 5 or 6 days later, from the hospital when his fever had gotten down. Um, the doctor came in, checked him. He was like, "Oh, this is fine. Now we can just give you medication to administer at home and whatnot." But then the one thing that I struggled with during that week was breastfeeding because my boobs were dry. I think they only started giving out milk maybe about 3 days after giving birth. So at the time, they never allowed anything to get into the nursery. So no formula, no whatnot. Once in a while, they'd give him glucose because my boobs were dry, but they had even started denying him glucose. And I was like, this child is already sick. He's getting heavy medication. Now you guys don't want to give him glucose. So my aunt gave me this idea where she was like, find formula, getting get it inside the hospital without being caught, and then every time, the 2 hours before going to the hospital, during that time, or maybe like 5 minutes before going to the nursery room, get that formula done, just a little bit of the formula, take it to the nursery, let him drink formula. If they ask you, say that you've been squeezing your boobs in during the 2 hours, and that's the amount of milk you've been able to do. So I had to lie to these people and say, this is my breast milk, when in actual fact it was just formula. And the difference in the breast milk and formula is very visible because formula is very white, while the breast milk has this yellowish coat that you can see. But they were not able to clock me, and I was just grateful my child had something to like feed on, with the medication they were giving him. So, after the 5 days, we got out of the hospital and we got home. Just like you, I also had that fear where I was like, will I sleep on the baby? Will I do this? Will I do that? Because I've heard about women sleeping on babies and babies dying from being suffocated. Never happened. Till today, I sleep with that child, and he makes a simple movement, and I'm up. I look at him and I'm like, "What? What are you doing? Like, why are we up? Why are you disturbing my sleep?" We have this weird,
Going on.
But yeah, it was one of the most amazing. It was bittersweet. I feel like the on the day of the birth, I had stress because of other situations, but I feel like the actual stress came after he was injected the BCG, and yeah, but that was my birth story. Oh my god. But anyway, because we're about to wrap up the episode, we've been talking for quite a while. Just, I'm going to use the same system you did with the last episode. If you were given a chance to
Okay.
change three things, so three things at the hospital you were in, quickly tell me, what would you change?
I think first of all, it would be just the waiting. I feel like I didn't need to be in the hospital for a whole 7+ days for me to get my baby. So that
Yeah,
would be the first thing. The second thing I think would be the response time from the time that my baby was in distress from the the inducing. I think I would have changed that because I did
yeah,
forget to mention earlier. But once they did the C-section, the senior doctor actually, I heard him say to the other doctors, "Do you see why the ECG was the way it was? Why they say this baby was in distress? My baby's umbilical cord was around her neck. So when they induced me, it started pulling on her. She was choking in my belly, so that's why she was in distress. So for me, I that like was like a very big scare. So I would change that. I think it would have been best for them to take me to get my C-section when they realized that something is wrong. They should have taken me immediately. And I think the
yeah.
third thing is just the compassion that you need to have as a healthcare professional. Just, I know it gets tiring, it's weary on the soul when you get to do this over and over with different people every day, all day. But I think they just need to be a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more enduring, a little bit more mindful of the things they do, the things they say, and how they treat patients. Yeah, I think those are my three things.
You know what? I'll probably say the same because so because it's the same thing with me. Like, I think the biggest issue with me was the care from the nurses. And funny enough, I'm just going to put this out. I find it awkward how female nurses are not so caring, or they're not very impassionate, and don't have sympathy and empathy on women, pregnant women, and new moms than the male healthcare or male midwives. Because I will say this, at the hospital that I was, the care that I got when after the C-section, the care they gave me as a new mom was perfect. But when it came to the nursery part, that's when I was like, no, because they would check on me. They would check on me. I had nurses at the maternity who were just showing up, even those that were not, um, you know, they were not,
Assigned to you.
my file was not in their hands. Yeah, they would still come to me and be like, "Oh, we just came to see how you're doing, how you healing and whatnot." But at the nursery, that's when I found issues where I was like, "You guys should be a little more compassionate. Like, these are little humans. They just got into the world. They don't have to see the cruelty of the world immediately. Like, be a little caring." So I feel like women that are midwives and healthcare, are in the healthcare, department, they need to be a little more compassionate with pregnant women, with new moms. Like, And some of them are mothers too. Like, be a little more compassionate, understand where they're coming from. It's a different pain to like get a child to be in this world, so they don't have to be like feel this feeling of neglection, yada yada, just because. And one thing that I will say, but it was prior to me giving birth, that I really disliked about the healthcare system in my country was the fact that they have a system where when you're pregnant and you're going for routine checkups, they do this thing where if you take your partner, they will put you at the beginning of the line, you know? And then for women that don't go with their partners, they have to wait until all these women who have brought their husbands or their boyfriends get checked and then they go. So I would go there by myself, you know. Even if I was early, I would have to wait. If I was early and after 10 women, there's a lady who's come with a husband or her boyfriend, she would have to go in first and get checked before I'd be checked. And that I just feel like was a flaw because why? It just felt like toxic masculinity to me because
That is
even
so.
even though they say, oh, what
I have never.
apparently the reason was that they were trying to encourage men to, be involved with their pregnant women. But I feel like it does the opposite because at the end of the day,
No, it really does. Because can you imagine if maybe your partner died and you have this child, and every day it's like rubbed in your face that you don't have a partner, people with partners? That is
thank
so
you.
crazy and ridiculous. I've never heard of
Yeah.
anything so outlandish. It's really wow. But for me, I'll tell you my
So that's the one thing I
antenatal.
that's the one thing I change.
Um, yeah, when I went to antenatal care, you have to register to do your antenatal care and all of that. And these people only registered 5 pregnant women a day. So if you come in at 4 a.m. and there's already 5 pregnant women before you cannot register on that day to start your antenatal care. And then once you start the antenatal care, they give you a date to come back on, like every couple of months or whatever. Well, it's actually every month. They only took 10. So every day they're registering 5, and then they're taking 5 to 10 mummies. So if you're number 11, then come back tomorrow. But then you have an issue if you come back tomorrow because it's not your day. They're very strict about days. If it's not your day, then you're going to be at the clinic the whole day. If you're going to a government hospital, you'll be there the whole day. When they're finished with everybody, then they will attend to you.
Yeah, that's outrageous. I can't. No. I can't. Anyway, guys, we've come to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for sticking up with us as we were discussing our different but kind of similar bird stories. Um, Please do not forget to comment down below. If you're a mom and you want to share your birth story, please let us know. We would like to hear different birth stories, what you went through, how everything was like for you in the different country or wherever you gave birth. Would like to know whether it was easy, whether it was difficult, how were those labor pains and whatnot, and the first time you made your baby. So please do comment, like the video, subscribe. Please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends, your family, everywhere on your social media platform. We will so greatly appreciate it. So, any last words before we close this down?
Um, no, I think you've said it all. Follow us on social media. I think you've said
Yes,
everything
so
else.
we
Yeah.
we will see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.